Everyone's on mute. It's just ended.
Just ended. I see. So maybe the mic, just 1 second, is the mic set up properly? Sorry. Microphone's on. Should work. We'll practice it after the two of us together, okay? See the microphone's on.
After your thing.
Mm-hmm. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another day of daily learning and inspiration for lockdown inspiration. Why are the lights shining so brightly here? Okay. Great. There we go. Good morning. Okay, so I've got some greetings already. Thank you for those who are sharing their greetings on the chat. Please do continue sharing, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. So let's see who we got here already. I want to welcome Mark Wachenheimer, Shirley Feldman, Michael Stein, Ellen Feinstein, Brian, Holden Sawitsky, Anne Heck, Aline Lovitz, Ruth Kaplan, Larry Cohen. Good. And on YouTube, Ian Clemenson and Dennis Pusarabi. If you are just joining us now, please do let us know you're with us. In the comments on either platform, Lynn Zlotnick, good morning. Great. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. If you're joining us now, please log on to the chat box and just let us know you're with us. We'd love to hear from you. Norman Stain, you're not on the right share. You're not on the right class for today. You got to go to today's class, Norman. Log out and go to the next one. David Ginsburg, good morning. Thank you for joining. Monty Isero. Hililu, thank you. I want to thank Ruth Kaplan. Ruth, thank you. I see you've already shared the talk on this share onto Facebook Live. You shared it. Thank you. That's very much appreciated. No, Norman, the comments are not coming through, Norman. Log out of this class, close it, and go back to the top of my timeline. You'll see the class for today, Thursday, 21st of May. Just check it out there. Okay, we're going to give it another minute or so just to allow for people to finish logging on. Thank you, Stan Braz, Booker Tov, Lionel Rubin on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Spell check problems. Okay, that's okay. No problems. Morning, Jaime and Linda. Okay, good. So one and all, we welcome you all to our platforms of Facebook and YouTube. It's a busy morning here. Once again, we've got close to 30 students who are zooming in through Facebook and YouTube to be joining us. I think Dennis Solomons, I don't know if you're on the right share, Dennis. Looks like your comments are coming out on a different share. Just look at that there. So today's discussion is going to be related to asking questions in Judaism. Can we ask questions in Judaism? That is the question of today. Can we ask questions? On the one hand, we have so many sources within Torah text that allows us and encourages us to ask questions. How relevant it is to now that we're asking lots of questions now. Under the current lockdown circumstances, we're asking lots and lots of questions. Why and how? Shirley Smith, good morning. And Raylene Brask, thank you. Why and how are many questions that people are asking today. So on the one hand, sources of biblical texts, sources of Torah tell us that we should ask questions. As the famous line goes, Ki shalcha vincha, when your child will ask you. Manfred Kalmek also, comments are coming through on the wrong chat. I'm not sure why. If you're with us, it's good. But your comments are coming through on the wrong chat. Jenny Lichtenstein, good morning. Marlene Scher, good morning. Stephen Her, yes, good morning. We dedicate learning to your mother, Esther Bat Moshe. So, today, on the one hand, Torah says we should ask questions. Ki shalcha vincha, we got to ask. Ma nishtana halayla hazen mikol halaylot is part of our fundamentals of our faith, of asking questions. Children ask their fathers questions. In the Mishnah Pirkei Avot, it says Lo habaishan lamed. The embarrassed one, the one who is shy, will never learn because they never ask questions. So this is a very, very important fundamental principle, asking questions in Judaism. On the other hand, we have a principle in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, that says it's called Kabbalat Ol. It's acceptance of the yoke of heaven on our shoulders the way God tells it to us, called Kabbalat Ol. Good morning, Dennis Solomons. Kabbalat Ol means doing things as we're told. Doing things because we have to. Doing things because God said so. That's Kabbalat Ol. Stan Brask, he who asks may be a fool for the moment, but he who never asks is a fool forever. Good line. Good line, Stan. Great one. If anyone has anything else to contribute to the conversation, whether it's questions or answers or comments or critique, please do share them with us. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you. So thanks, Stan, for that. So on the other hand, it says Kabbalat Ol. Murad Dworkin. Yes, thank you. On YouTube, I enjoyed my walk immensely this morning. Thank you. I know how you know. So we got to balance these two conflicting principles. On the one hand, it's the principle of asking questions. Ki shalcha vincha. On the other hand, it's the principle of Kabbalat Ol, doing things today because God said so. Giving of our lives for Judaism. Boker Tov Robert. Giving of our lives for Judaism. How people gave of their lives without asking any questions. It was called Mesirut Nefesh, self-sacrifice. Doing it because I have to do it. Not because I ask questions, not because I understand it. I do it because I have to do it. That's called Mesirut Nefesh, Kabbalat Ol. And the question I have is, are these two principles conflicting? Is it conflicting? Is it contradictory to have, on the one hand, an understanding of asking questions, as Stan says, if you don't ask, you'll be a fool forever. On the other hand, Kabbalat Ol, and doing things because God said so. One of the answers is that it all depends on the order. Good morning, Ronnie Kotkis. I see you on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us. So one of the questions is, what is the order? One of the answers to explain the conflict between asking questions and accepting Kabbalat Ol, doing things because we have to. One of the answers is what's the order? What am I starting with? Yeah, they are conflicting, but if you know the right order, then we'll understand how the two work together. And that ties in to the Matan Torah, the Mount Sinai experience. That ties into Matan Torah, as we know that Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Mount Sinai with the words of Hashem, and he said, would you like to accept the Torah? Would you like to accept the Torah? And the Jewish people said the famous two words of Naaseh v'nishma. Right? We will do and we will listen. Now look at the order there. Generally speaking, we don't act in such a way. Generally speaking, when someone gives us an instruction, first, we want to understand the instruction. First, we want you to explain to me how it's going to work. Tell me the details, how it's going to work, what I'm going to do, the logistics behind it, how I'm going to accomplish it. I want to know the full spectrum. And then, if it suits me and it fits into my framework, then I'll commit myself to doing it. That's how we normally function. Now, before we sign the deal, we want to know the full details of the deal. Give me the full contract with the full details, with the income and the expenditure, with the logistics and the legal aspects. I want to know the full spectrum. And once I know that, I'll then commit myself. So normally we go nishma v'naseh. Normally, I'll listen, and then I'll decide if I'm going to do or not. But that's not what the Jewish people said at Mount Sinai. Good morning, Cheryl and Diamond on YouTube. That's not what the Jewish people said at Sinai. At Mount Sinai, at Har Sinai, we said the words Naaseh v'nishma. First we said we'll do, and then we'll understand. And so the key answer to understanding the conflict between asking questions, which is a fundamental principle of Judaism, and accepting by Kabbalat Ol, by the word of God, is another fundamental principle. The one way of reconciling the two is the order. You've got to go the order of Naaseh v'nishma. We'll do, and then we'll listen. And I'll explain in a moment how that works. Welcome to one and all. I see our numbers on YouTube are picking up quite high. So there's lots of people who share with us morning greetings. We'd love to know who's here and that you're with us. We'd love to connect with you and communicate with you and take your questions and your comments. So please do share them in the chat below and say hello. And we'll welcome you publicly and greet you and engage. That's really what it's all about, engaging. We're close to 40 students across two platforms here this morning. So thank you very much for joining. So the order, we're talking about the order of Naaseh v'nishma. What happens in Naaseh v'nishma? First, we commit ourselves to Kabbalat Ol. First, I commit myself to doing what I have to do. That's what I have to do. There's no umming and ahhing. There's no questions. God said we do, we do. I know function on such a level. It's hard for the finite mind to like that. But that's the way we function. That's the way we as Jews, that's the way we approach Judaism. As Jews, that's the way we focus. First, we commit ourselves. Then we question. And so what we do understand is the foundation. This is key. The foundation has to be the commitment. The foundation has to be the word of God. That needs to be the foundation. Then, once we've committed ourselves and we know we're in, and we've signed the contract, and we've said Naaseh, then comes phase 2. And phase 2 is the questions. Don't settle for stage 1. Don't settle just because God said, therefore I do it. Yes, that's your foundation. But the next step is, now I want to understand it. I want to ask. I want to question. Now, why is the order so critical? Because if you start with the questions, you may not get to the answer. You may not get to the answer. You may not get to the action. That's the danger of starting with questions. If you start with questions, if you don't get the answer you're looking for, you won't commit yourself. That's why we start with Kabbalat Ol. That's why we start with the action. We commit ourselves. Now, I'm going to explore the answer. Critical to explore the answer. You have to explore the answer. But if you don't find the answer, it's not going to change anything because you're committed, because you've signed the contract. And so you could go and investigate. You should go and investigate. Come on to Shiurim, log on to Rabbi Stern's daily learning for lockdown inspiration, engage, ask questions. Maybe you'll find out some more answers. You have to. But if you don't get the answer you're looking for, that doesn't mean that you erase that mitzvah or you erase that ritual out of your logbook. No way. Because the foundation that we've committed ourselves to is doing Naaseh. Benishma, we'll come to learn, we'll come to understand, we'll come to investigate, we'll come to explore. And whatever we do understand, fantastic. And whatever we don't understand, that's okay. That's okay. That's the combination, the lesson we learn from the 2 types of mitzvot. As we've spoken before, there are chukim and there are mishpatim. There are statutes and there are logical reasonings or logical mitzvot of Torah too. Chukim are statutes without any reason. Mishpatim are mitzvahs that have reason to them. And that's why we have the 2 types of mitzvahs. Because they teach us 2 fundamental principles. Chukim, statutes, such as kashrut, that has no reason to it, teaches us the principle of doing things because we're told to do so. There's no reason. Yeah, there are Kabbalistic insights, but God didn't give us a reason to the mitzvah of kashrut. We do it because he said so. So the mitzvot that are chukim, that are statutes, teach us the principle of doing because we have to do. And then we have the mitzvahs of mishpatim, which are more the civil, logical laws, and they teach us how to understand. That we're able to understand, that we're able to ask, because there's reason, there's logic there. And so we should ask. But one thing we have to understand is that the chukim, the statutes without logic, we may not ever understand because they're God's reason beyond logic. And the mishpatim, the civil, logical laws that I do understand, I'm committed to them to such a level beyond logic. They have to complement one another. So the foundation is there, the commitment is there, and then comes the second phase of asking questions. There's only one important, or there's a few important conditions to asking questions. Well, the first condition I already mentioned. The first condition is that we know or we accept the limit to our understanding. That's a key element here. That when I ask questions and I try and figure out answers about Judaism, I can only approach it with the humility that I don't fully understand. That's the key. And I think there are many people and many groups in Judaism that don't have this principle. So their questions are so powerful. Their questions are so dominating that they've come to the conclusion if they ask and they don't get an answer, It must be wrong. It has no feet to stand on. No, asking questions needs to have the humility that I may not find the answer. There may not be an answer for me. That's a critical point, a critical condition to keep in mind when asking questions. That I may not get the answer, an answer, and I may not get an answer that I'm looking for. Cheryl and Diamond, good morning. Thank you for joining us. So that's condition number one. Condition number two is that we ask out of respect. We ask with respect, not to laugh and not to mock and not to dismiss and not to reject. Many, many times when you get into a discussion, the other party is looking to mock your standpoint or to critique, or not even critique, to reject, to doubt your standpoint. That's not the approach. That's not the approach we take when asking questions in Judaism. The approach we take in Judaism is out of respect. This is Torah. This is the sages. These are the Rabbonim, the rabbis. We don't mock that. We don't reject that. We respect that. Yes, we may have our questions, and that's okay, but it's not out of ridicule. And that's a key element. Take, for example, the Rasha, the wicked man on the Seder night, right? The wicked child on the Seder night. What's the approach of the Rasha? The approach of the Rasha is that he doesn't ask out of desire to understand, but the Rasha wants to walk away. He wants to throw the towel. And the way he throws the towel is by asking in a way of rejection. What you're saying is nonsense and I don't want this. Right? That's the Rasha's approach. That's not the approach that we take. And now we come to the third condition. The third condition for Judaism, in asking questions in Judaism. But before I get to that, we've got close to 40 students here between Facebook and YouTube. So I want to welcome you all here. I'm very grateful that you're joining me live on our daily learning lockdown inspiration. If you're just joining us now, put a comment in the chat box. Let us know you're here. Say hello. Say good morning. We'd love to acknowledge you. So thank you for joining us here. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. So the third condition for asking questions, the nishma in Torah, the nishma of Torah, the asking of Judaism, asking of questions in Judaism. The third aspect, the third detail, the third condition is that we understand more by doing more. Listen carefully. We understand more by doing more. We can't expect to sit back in our couch and lie back in our bed, in our recliner, and say, teach me, tell me the reasons, and then I'll consider whether I want to keep it or not. In Judaism, it doesn't work that way. The more we observe, the more we understand. Okay? It's like music. The more you study music, the more you understand of music, or the more you listen to music, the more you understand music. That's key. The more you read literature, the more you study the writings of the authors of the writers and authors of literature, the more you understand literature. The more you watch a football game, a soccer match, the more you'll understand about the soccer match. Don't sit there and read. You know, it's like the driver's handbook. I always marvel how they make the drivers fill out this handbook about laws and regulations of the road. You got to study that book off by heart. You have no idea what the street or the road looks like. You've never been in a car before, and you start reading this manual. It sounds like Chinese because who knows what's going on there. But anyway, after you get through that, eventually you get onto the road, and when you get onto the road, that's when you learn quickest. That's when you learn quickest. I remember personally my driver's test, where the tester asked me to do a reverse parking. Boy, was I petrified. I was so scared because they were going to watch me how many turns and how many steps I take in my parking. But that's how you learn. Thank God I passed it. But that's how you learn. You learn because you practice more. And when you practice more, you start to appreciate more. The more you keep Shabbos, the more you start to understand Shabbos. The more you keep Kashrut, the more you start to understand Kashrut. It's all good and fine asking questions from a distance. But if you haven't really practiced it first, you're not going to know it. Get into the car, hold the steering wheel, and that way you're going to get the answer very, very quickly. They tell an anecdote. And when you get older, everything starts clicking. After my father-in-law reached the age of 70, he began to complain that everything's clicking. When I stand up, my knees click. When I write, my fingers click. When I eat, my teeth click. When you get older, you start clicking. Stephen Thur, thank you. One gets to learn from one's mistakes. Practice makes perfect. Great. Good one. So that's exactly the point, is that you learn from your mistakes. It's okay. You know, the OCD mindset says that I won't do it until I know fully how to do it. I won't do it until I properly know how to do it. But Stephen Thur, you're right. In Judaism, it's not like that. In Judaism, it says start. Give it a chance. Go for it. Give it a try. And if you don't get it right the first time, please God, you'll get it right the second time. That's okay. We grow through the process. We grow through the process. And so that's the background to a shaila, a question. Asking questions gives us the answers. Ask questions out of sensitivity. Ask questions out of respect. Ask questions out of the thirst of wanting to understand. And then there's definitely room for the questions. That's why we have to engage. We have to learn more. If there's any questions that you'd like to ask or comments, please do share them. We'd love to hear from you. So share them on the group, on the chat, and let us know that you're with us and that you're communicating with us. The advantage of asking questions is that it makes us thirsty for knowledge. The more questions there are, the more questions we have, the more thirsty we are for knowledge. When a teacher walks into a classroom, the teacher asks the children questions because the questions get the children thirsty for understanding and for knowledge. And then they have to go home and find out the answers. That's the advantage of those mitzvahs that create that question. And so when we listen to a shir, or we listen to a drasha, or we listen to a lecture, there's two steps that one needs to take when approaching that lecture or that shir. The first approach is naaseh. Let's do it. Let's sit down, let's focus, let's concentrate, and try to understand what the teacher is teaching us. That's step number one. If you walk into that class because you saw the title, if you walk into that class with questions in your mind, immediately you're not even going to get the information that's being shared. There's no way, because your mind's thinking about your questions. You're not even focusing on what's being said. The first step of listening to Torah, listening to education, listening to a shir or a lecture, is first going in of naaseh. I want to now accept. I want to now listen. I want to now absorb the information that's being shared with me. That's step number one. But that's not enough. There are many yay-sayers, many people who nod their heads and say, yes, yes, yes. That's not enough for Judaism. In Judaism, it demands more from us. In Judaism, we're expected to ask questions, and that's where the next step comes in. That once the lecture is over, it's worthwhile thinking through things. It's worthwhile asking questions. It's worthwhile engaging. Many times we want to engage with the lecturer and the teacher immediately after the class. because it's fresh on our minds. It's not so easy to do that because the lecturer, A, may be exhausted from teaching. B, there's a long line of students that are waiting to ask questions, so you're going to have to wait your turn for a long time. Often it's worthwhile following up with the teacher afterwards, the next day. Write an email. And I know I owe one of you here an email in response to your question. So I'm going to practice what I'm preaching, and I'm going to come back to your question. So apologies for the delay on the response to your email that was sent to me. I will respond. That's the way to go. Stan Brass writes, questions often force the teacher to learn so that the question can be answered. Exactly. As the Gemara says, the Talmud tells us, Umi talmidai yoser mikulon, that we learn most from our teachers. Most from our teachers. Exactly. Thank you, Stan. Sorry, most from our students. I meant that. Most from our students. So then comes that stage of asking. And as I said, asking straight after the class may not always work. It's hectic, it's busy, but it's worthwhile following up afterwards. A phone call, an email. The biggest compliment to a teacher is when you can follow up on their learning afterwards and say, I've been thinking about what you were saying. I've been thinking about the shiur and the content, and I want to engage, I want to understand, I want to question. Out of respect and out of thirst for understanding. That's right, for sure. So that's the theme of today, the balance of Kabbalat Ol, of the yoke of heaven, together with the encouragement of asking questions. That's the balance of both, and the two complement one another. The two help one another, the two support one another, and that's critical. So it's important to embrace both the Naaseh and the Nishma, both aspects as we get closer to Shavuot. If you are logging on, if you're here with us and you would like to share with us a question, please feel free to ask or to question or to comment. But it's been wonderful having you all online with us. And please go, we look forward to tomorrow, another day of daily learning under lockdown. We've had a wonderful crowd here, all on YouTube, a fantastic crowd on YouTube. Our Facebook numbers are not as high as usual, but nonetheless, we love having you all here with us. Thank you very much for joining. And keep on punching, keep on going. I'm so nervous that this is all as lockdown starts, as people are starting to get busy again and work starting to get up again. It's going to be difficult for people to learn. So while this is going, let's hold on to this, and we'll have to reassess what to do in the next phase, and maybe to find another time in the day. But for now, we're continuing with 10:30 in the morning on Facebook and YouTube. Join us there daily tomorrow. Thank you very much to all. Have a wonderful day ahead. Keep safe, keep sane, and keep spiritual.